Before hospitals, before microscopes, before we even knew the heart-pumped blood, there was Hippocrates. Born into a world ruled by myth and gods, he dared to ask a different question. What if illness came not from the wrath of deities, but from the body itself? On the island of Kos, amidst olive trees and temples, a physician began observing, recording, treating, not with spells, but with reason. He watched the pulse, examined the sputum, studied the fever, and in doing so, transformed medicine into a discipline of the mind as much as the hand. But the man we call the father of medicine is shrouded in mystery. Did he truly write the famous oath? Did he even exist as we imagine him? In this episode, we peel back the centuries to find the real Hippocrates, the physician, the philosopher, the symbol, and explore how his ideas echo across operating rooms and ethics debates to this day. This is the story of a healer whose legacy outlived the ancient world and shaped every generation of medicine to come. The historical Hippocrates. Our story begins on a sun-drenched island in the eastern Aegean Sea, Kos. It's the 5th century BCE, the classical age of Greece. Here, amidst olive groves and limestone cliffs, a child is born into a lineage that will leave an indelible mark on human history. His name, Hippocrates. To understand Hippocrates, we must first understand his world. Greece in the 5th century BCE was a patchwork of fiercely independent city-states: Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes, each with its own customs, armies, and ambitions. Democracy blossomed in Athens, while Sparta remained a warrior state. Philosophy flourished under figures like Socrates, Plato, and later Aristotle. Art, architecture, and literature achieved new heights. And yet, medicine remained primitive by our standards. Disease was seen as divine punishment. Epilepsy, for instance, was called the sacred disease, thought to be a curse from the gods. Healing was practiced by temple priests who invoked deities like Asclepius, the god of medicine, in hopes of divine intervention. People slept in these temples, hoping for healing visions. Remedies often mixed herbal concoctions with ritual purification and prayer. The birth and lineage of Hippocrates. Into this world stepped Hippocrates, born around 460 BCE on the island of Kos. He came from a line of physicians known as the Asclepiads, a hereditary guild that claimed descent from Asclepius himself. His father, Heraclides, was a physician. His education likely began in this family tradition, but expanded far beyond it. Legend holds that Hippocrates studied medicine under his father and a Thracian physician named Herodicus, and even learned philosophy from the great Democritus. Whether this is fact or embellishment, it suggests that his training was rigorous and wide-ranging. Hippocrates absorbed not just the lore of the temples, but the analytical habits of philosophers. Fact versus myth. Who was the real Hippocrates? But who was Hippocrates really? Separating history from hagiography is no easy task. There are no surviving portraits from his time, and no writings we can confidently attribute to his hand. What we have instead is a reputation, an aura passed down through generations of doctors, scholars, and scribes. Ancient writers like Plato and Galen mention him with reverence. Galen, in particular, writing some 600 years later, made Hippocrates the cornerstone of his own medical philosophy. By the Roman era, Hippocrates had become a symbol of wisdom, rationality, and ethical conduct. Ironically, the very ambiguity of his biography helped elevate him. He became a canvas onto which the ideal physician could be painted. It's possible he was less a singular genius and more the figurehead of a broader movement, the culmination of a shift from mystical to empirical medicine. the wandering healer. According to later biographers, Hippocrates traveled widely throughout the Greek world, perhaps to Thessaly, Thrace, and even as far as the court of Perdiccas II of Macedon. In one tale, he's said to have stopped a plague in Athens by lighting fires to purify the air, more likely a reflection of the airborne miasma theory than actual event, but illustrative of his practical reputation. Whether or not these stories are accurate, they depict a man who was not confined to Kos. Hippocrates, or at least his teachings, were mobile, passed from city to city, scribe to scribe. His name became associated with a style of medicine that emphasized observation, experience, and reason over divine intervention. Kos, cradle of medical change. The island of Kos itself became a hub for medical learning. By the Hellenistic period, a century or two after Hippocrates' death, the island was home to a major medical school and an Asclepieion, a healing temple and early prototype of the hospital. Pilgrims came from across the Mediterranean for treatment. This was no accident. The cultural climate of the time was shifting. The influence of philosophers like Pythagoras and Empedocles had begun to naturalize the body, to explain it through elements, not spirits. The same way Thales had looked for a natural explanation of the cosmos, Hippocrates sought a natural explanation of disease. The result was a new kind of healer, one who listened, observed, and recorded, who asked not what offended the gods but what went wrong in the body. Medicine as craft, not magic. Hippocrates helped redefine the physician's identity. Medicine was no longer sorcery, it was techne, a craft. Physicians were artisans of the body, and like any craft, medicine required skill, training, and humility. He encouraged careful note-taking, regular examination, and cautious prognosis. In the Hippocratic view, healing required time, observation, and patience. It wasn't about sudden miracles, but steady guidance. What he called vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature. The physician's job was not to dominate nature, but to assist it. In a world prone to excess heat, cold, fluid, temper, balance was everything. And the good doctor, like a gardener or a sailor, watched for the right moment to intervene. Hippocrates and his contemporaries. What made Hippocrates stand out wasn't that he worked in isolation, but that he worked within a moment of tremendous intellectual fertility. This was the age of the sophists, the pre-Socratics, the tragedians. Ideas were in the air, about the soul, the body, the universe. The pre-Socratic thinkers, Anaxagoras, Empedocles, Heraclitus, had already begun to speculate that all things, even illness, could be understood by natural causes. Hippocrates absorbed these ideas but brought them down to earth. He applied them to the human body, and in doing so he quietly revolutionized the doctor's role, not as a priest or a shaman, but as a clinical observer, a rational guide, a helper in nature's process of healing. The birth of medical rationalism. Hippocrates marked the beginning of medical rationalism. He insisted that diseases had natural causes and that these could be studied, categorized, and treated through observation. He taught that each patient had a unique constitution, shaped by diet, environment, and temperament. In this, he was ahead of his time. While much of his physiological theory, the infamous four humors, would be debunked millennia later, the structure of his thinking remained sound. He taught that medicine required both science and ethics, both technique and compassion. As one ancient text puts it, life is short, the art long, opportunity fleeting, experience treacherous, and judgment difficult. This wasn't just advice to young physicians, it was a warning to treat medicine with the seriousness, humility, and reverence it deserved. Conclusion to Part 1. A man, a myth, a movement. So, was Hippocrates a single man or a movement, a traveling doctor or a constructed ideal? Perhaps he was all of these, but what's certain is this: he stood at the threshold of a new kind of medicine, one rooted not in superstition, but in study, not in divine will, but in human reason. And while we may never fully know the man who walked the stony paths of Kos over 2,000 years ago, we still walk in his shadow. Every time a doctor studies a chart, listens to a patient, or considers the ethical weight of a decision, they practice a form of Hippocratic medicine. In the next chapter of our story, we'll explore the writings that bear his name, the Hippocratic corpus, and how they laid the foundation for clinical practice as we know it. If you're enjoying this journey through the roots of medicine, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.